With millions of people watching Benue TV worldwide, we ensure that we bring you news that is accurate, timely, and dependable.
Our programs are entertaining and educative with high-quality audio, leaving you with an amazing viewing experience.
Benue TV, a new dimension in broadcasting.
Welcome to the exciting world of Benue Television, where we give you an exclusive ride into the world of news, current affairs, and entertainment. Ready for our first stop? Ride with me. Benue Television.
Our news and flagship program, Daybreak Benue, keeps you informed on events and happenings around the nation and the world.
We engage our guests on hot topics and beam searchlight on shady stories.
With millions of people watching Benue TV worldwide, we ensure that we bring you news that is accurate, timely, and dependable.
Our programs
provide accounts and lawyers and a dazzling network of apparently fraudulent shell companies and subcontractors. Although numerous people had been arrested in the VBS case over the years, only Mutunzi and former VBS chief financial official Philip Truta have been found guilty and sentenced. South Africa's Lighthouse Police Unit Directorate for Priority Crime Investigation, which is tasked with investigating corruption, said it is also pursuing other suspects in the VBS case. A Ugandan court has sentenced a 24-year-old man to 6 years in prison for insulting the president and the first family through his video posted on TikTok. Edward Aweboa was charged with hate speech and spreading misleading and malicious information against the President Yoweri Museveni, First Lady Janet Museveni, and son Muhul, who is the head of the military. The courts also headed Aweboa and shared abusive information, saying that it would be an increase in taxes under President Museveni. He had pleaded guilty and asked for forgiveness. The presiding magistrate said that while he had pleaded for mercy, he did not look remorseful for his action, and the words used in the video were really vulgar. He was sentenced to 6 years for each of the 4 charges against him, which are to run concurrently. Rights groups regularly denounce Ugandan authorities for violations of human rights and freedom of expression. In 2022, award-winning Uganda author Kakwenza was charged with 2 counts of offensive communications after making unflattering remarks about the president and his son on Twitter. He fled the country to Germany after spending a month in jail, where he claimed he had been tortured. Activist and writer Stella Nyenzi, who is also in exile, had earlier been jailed after publishing a poem that was critic against Mr. Museveni. President Museveni had been in power since 1986, 14 years before Aweboa was born. In 2022, he signed into law against speech which rights group criticized, saying it is aimed at suppressing freedom of speech online. Last year, the Constitutional Court ruled that section of the Act that penalized offensive communication was unconstitutional. Rwanda has said it is not required to refund the UK after the multi-million pounds migrant deal between the two countries was scrapped. New UK Prime Minister and Labour Party leader Keir Starmer announced at the weekend that the plan to deport some asylum seekers to Rwanda was dead and buried. The scheme was forged by the previous Conservative government, which since prevailing the plan in 2022 has paid Rwanda £240 million. Legal challenges meant that the scheme never took off, and the UK expressed hope on Monday that some money from the deal could be recouped. The following day, the spokesperson for Rwanda's government, Alain Mokolinda, announced on the country's state television that money was not part of the agreement, adding that UK had approached Rwanda and requested a partnership, which was discussed extensively. In January, after 21 months of the scheme being stalled, Rwanda President Paul Kagame suggested some money could be returned if the asylum seekers were sent to the country. However, Rwanda's government later specified there was no obligation to refund the UK. The Rwanda's capital, Kigali, workers hired months ago to build housing for the asylum seekers expressed concern about Mr. Starmer's decision, saying that the death of the scheme could badly affect their livelihood. Employees on the site get paid between £1.0 and £6 per day, relatively good wages for construction workers in Rwanda. A resident, Maria, said that the value of houses in her neighborhood had increased significantly since construction started, but she feared that poverty could come back to Gahanga. Since his party won last week's election in a landslide, Mr. Starmer has leveled the Rwandan scheme an expensive gimmick and pledged to instead focus on launching a new border security command to tackle people smuggling gangs. Opposition to the bill has also come from the quarters over the past 2 years. The UK Supreme Court ruled that the plan unlawful. Human rights organization branded it cruel and draconian, while disasters within the Conservative Party pushed for amendments that could better protect the scheme from legal challenges. You're watching Foreign Desk on Benue Television. Let's take a quick break. Don't go away. Glad to have you back. United States President Joe Biden, wavering a re-election campaign, has plunged deeper into crisis amid a fresh wave of pressure from allies concerned about his age and fitness, with actor George Clooney and several top Democrats joining calls for him to step aside. In a withering essay published in the New York Times on Wednesday, Clooney said that he had personally witnessed the 81-year-old Democrat's decline at a major fundraiser he co-hosted for the president last month, and that he wasn't even the Joe Biden of 2020. Clooney said Biden would not beat Republican challenger Donald Trump in November, and that Democrats would also lose the House of Representatives and the Senate if he stayed on the ticket. In an op-ed published in the Washington Post later on Wednesday, Democratic Senator Peter Welch, who represents Vermont, became the first member of the chamber to call on Biden to quit the race. Also on Wednesday, two more House Democrats, Al Bloomeier of the Oregon and Pat Ryan of the New York, and the New York Lieutenant Governor Antonio Delgado, called on Biden to withdraw. 10 Democratic lawmakers have publicly called on Biden to drop out so far, while numerous others have raised concern about his ability to defeat Trump. Meanwhile, former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi declined to definitely back Biden's candidacy in a television interview, saying he should make a decision about continuing in the race soon, even though the president has repeatedly insisted he will not drop out. Biden, who is hosting world leader at the NATO summit in Washington this week, has repeatedly dismissed calls to step aside, insisting he is the best candidate to beat Trump, and cast concern about his candidacy as largely driven by the media and Democratic Party elites. China has warned NATO against provoking confrontation over its ties with Russia after the Western military alliance accused Beijing of being a decisive enabler of the Moscow's war against Ukraine. The warning on Thursday came as NATO leader meeting in Washington, D.C. promised to blotter Ukraine and Europe's defense against Russia and made clear that China was also becoming a focus on the alliance. A spokesperson for Beijing's mission on the European Union cautioned NATO to stop publishing the so-called China threats and provoking confrontation and rivalry, and do more to contribute to world peace and stability. China, which has deepened strategic ties with Russia, has refused to condemn Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. It has presented itself as the neutral party in the war and says it is not sending lethal assistance to either side. Unlike the US and other Western nations, Beijing, however, has offered a critical lifeline to Russia's isolated economy, with trade becoming since the conflict began. The 32 NATO members in their final communiqué on Wednesday expressed profound concern over Beijing's deepening partnership with Moscow. They said China has become a decisive enabler of the Russians' war against Ukraine through its so-called no-limits partnership and its large-scale support for Russia's defense industrial base. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg told reporters that China provides equipment, microelectronics and tools that are allowing Russia to build the missiles, to build the bombs, to build the aircraft, to build the weapons they use to attack Ukraine. He said it was the first time all NATO allies had stated this so clearly in an agreed document. However, Beijing's spokesperson dismissed the criticism, adding that China's core position is to promote peace, talks and political settlement, a reference to a 12-point peace plan Beijing issued more than a year ago that set out the general principles of ending the war. The plan received a lukewarm reception at the time in Russia and Ukraine. We'll take more news after this break. Don't go away. Glad to have you back on Foreign Desk. The remains of 14 victims of the 1995 Srebrenica genocide in Bosnia and Herzegovina have been laid to rest as thousands of people commemorate the anniversary 2 months after the United Nations established an annual day of remembrance. 13 men and 2 teenage boys, recently identified through DNA analysis, were buried on Thursday at the cemetery just outside Srebrenica in eastern Bosnia 29 years after their deaths. Mirza Bezic, a genocide survivor who was burying his 22-year-old brother mid-Hajj this year, told Al Jazeera that the sorrow of discovering his brother's remains almost 3 decades later was indescribable. The hardest part was sharing the news with his father and sister, also survivors, he said. All 3 attended the funeral. The genocide Europeans only acknowledged after World War II occurred shortly after the breakup of the then Yugoslavia on July 11, 1995. Bosnian Serb forces overran the United Nations protected safe area of Srebrenica, separating at least 8,000 Bosniak men and boys from their wives, mothers and sisters, and slaughtered them. Those who tried to flee were restlessly pursued through the forest and across the mountains surrounding Srebrenica. In a post on X on Thursday, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres said he hoped the memory of Srebrenica would strengthen their collective resolve to bring a world free from the scourge of genocide, where justice and peace prevail. The spire of a medieval cathedral in the city of Rion in northern France is mostly clear of smoke after catching ablaze, and firefighters rushed into to contain it. The fire broke out about midday on Thursday in the Cathedral of Our Lady of Assumption, which was undergoing renovation, and local prefecture and emergency fire service said. The Gothic cathedral, one of the France's finest, dates back of the 12th century and was repeatedly planted by the Impressionist artist Claude Monet in the 19th century, generating worldwide fame. Images from France BFM television channels released shortly after the fire erupted showed a thick plume of smoke rising from the cathedral's central spire and people in the streets looking up in the hole. In latest footage broadcast by the channel, smoke could still be seen through the gap in the white cover encircling the scaffolding around the spire, but was no longer rising in a dark column. Ron Mayor Nicolas Mayor, writing on X, formerly Twitter, said all public resources had been mobilized to quell the blaze, whose origin remains unknown. The local fracture, which excises state authorities in the region, said that the cathedral had been evacuated. A security cordon was in place around the building, advising people to stay away to give space for emergency responders to work. So far, there are no reports of casualties, and the extent of the damage is unclear. According to the prefecture, workers who were on site carrying the renovation are safe, the cathedral's archbishop said. The cathedral was built and rebuilt over a period of more than 800 years and had been features from early Gothic to late Flamboyant and Renaissance architecture. It is the foremost for the 3 towers, each of which are built in different styles. Ukraine has seized an international firefighter it says was transporting stolen Ukrainian grains from Russian-occupied Crimea. Ukraine's security service said on Thursday that its forces stopped the vessels in the Black Sea near Ukraine's Odessa region, seizing it and apprehending its captain. The Cameroon-flagged vessel, Usumfo, had been working from Russia to export grains to the Middle East. The SBU said it had repeatedly docked at the Crimean seaport of Sevastopol since last year to pick up several tonnes of the looted products, the statement said. Sevastopol is an important military hub for Russia on the Black Sea. To control its movement, the SBU said the vessel regularly shut off its GPS tracker and lodged false travel information. Its captain, an Azerbaijani citizen, could face up to 5 years in prison to violating travel restrictions governing Ukraine's Russian-occupied territories. It is unclear if 12 other foreign crew members who prosecutors said were also on board the vessel when it was seized will face charges. With that, we've come to the end of our bulletin this afternoon.